Welcome back to Money Masters, where we dive deep into the world of stocks and trends and anything ka-ching. Today, we're delving into a topic that's often shrouded in mystery and controversy: the Federal Reserve. From its secretive origins to its role in shaping the global economy, we'll uncover who truly owns and controls the Federal Reserve. So buckle up because we're about to demystify one of the most powerful institutions in the world. Alright, let's dive into the intriguing world of the Federal Reserve. Imagine a time back in 1910 when some of the wealthiest and most influential people in the world gathered on a secluded island called Jekyll Island. What were they up to? Well, they were cooking up a plan, and not just any plan. They were plotting the creation of the Federal Reserve, which is basically the big boss of economic decisions. But why all the hush-hush? The thing is, the Federal Reserve isn't your run-of-the-mill institution. It's not a regular company, not a government agency, and it's not answerable to regular folks like you and me. So, you can imagine they had to be sneaky about it. Now let's throw in a fun fact here. Thomas Jefferson, one of the big shots behind America's birth, was totally against the idea of central banking. He was like, whoa, hold up, letting private banks control our money? That's a recipe for disaster. And you know what? He had a point. Back in the day when America tried its hand at paper currency, things got wild. Inflation went through the roof. So Jefferson's skepticism about the Federal Reserve wasn't just hot air. It was based on some real-life lessons from history. Fast forward to 1913 and voila, the Federal Reserve Act is signed into law. But let's not be fooled by its fancy name. See, the folks who cooked up this plan were pretty crafty. By slapping federal in the name, they wanted us regular folks to think it was part of the government. But in reality, it's as private as your neighbor's backyard barbecue. So who's really in control of this economic powerhouse? Let's find out. But wait, before we unravel the mysteries of who's really pulling the strings at the Federal Reserve, let's pause for a moment. You might be wondering, why all this secrecy? Why go through all the trouble of sneaky meetings and covert operations? Well, it turns out the story behind the Federal Reserve is like a puzzle with missing pieces, and as we piece it together, we'll discover not just the who, but also the why behind its creation. So, grab your detective hats because the plot thickens as we delve deeper into the ownership and control of the Federal Reserve. You see, the Fed might seem like this mysterious entity, but is actually a creation of Congress. Back in the day, Congress whipped up the Federal Reserve Act, giving birth to the Fed. But here's the thing, Congress holds the keys to the Fed's kingdom. They can change the rules, tweak its powers, or even shut it down if they feel like it. Talk about having some serious control, right? Now, let's talk about the real power players at the Fed. The Federal Open Market Committee, or FOMC for short. These folks are like the Avengers of monetary policy, making decisions that can shake up the economy. Picture this, the FOMC is made up of big shots from the Board of Governors and Reserve Bank presidents. And guess what? They're the ones calling the shots on stuff like interest rates and money supply. But here's where it gets interesting. See, the Board of Governors is handpicked by the President and approved by the Senate. So you can say they're the A-listers of the Fed. But what about the Reserve Bank presidents? Well, they're chosen by member banks. Yep, the same banks that hold shares in the reserve banks. Sounds like a cozy arrangement, right? But hold your horses, because there's a twist. Now, let's talk about those shares. Picture them like tickets to a fancy gala. They get you in the door, but they don't let you call the shots. Member banks might hold these shares, but they don't get to vote on stuff like picking the Reserve Bank presidents. It's like having a front row seat to a concert but not being able to request your favorite song. So who's really pulling the strings behind the scenes? Who's profiting off the Federal Reserve? Well, it's a bit of a mystery, but one thing's for sure. The answer might surprise you. Now, let's talk about the bottom line. Who's making bank off the Federal Reserve? Well, it's not your typical Joe Schmo investor. Instead, it's the member banks who hold shares in the reserve banks. These banks get a little dividend, like a bonus, for being shareholders. But here's where it gets interesting. Any leftover profits from the Fed's operations go straight back to the federal government. It's like when you're dividing up the pizza with your buddies, and there's always that one friend who ends up with the last slice. In this case, it's Uncle Sam. But hold on to your hats because there's a twist in the tale. In recent years, the Fed's balance sheet, basically all the stuff it owns, has gotten pretty hefty. So hefty, in fact, that it ended up in the red. Now imagine if you went on a shopping spree and maxed out your credit card. That's kind of what's happening here. So what does this mean for Uncle Sam? Well, for now, he's left scratching his head, wondering where all the dough went. But here's the kicker. When it comes to the Federal Reserve, the real boss is Congress. Yep, you heard that right. Congress holds all the cards with the power to change the rules, shake things up, or even pull the plug on the whole operation. So if you've ever wondered who's really in charge of the Federal Reserve, look no further than Capitol Hill. It's like when you're playing a game of Monopoly and the person holding the deed to Boardwalk and Park Place has all the power. In this case, it's Congress holding the deed to the Fed. And there you have it, folks. We've journeyed through the twists and turns of the Federal Reserve, unraveling its secrets and shedding light on its inner workings. From its clandestine origins on Jekyll Island to its role in shaping the global economy, the Fed is a fascinating puzzle with many pieces. But fear not, because here at Money Masters, we're all about demystifying the complex world of finance. So, what's the big takeaway? Well, when it comes to the Federal Reserve, it's not just about who owns it, it's about who holds the power. And as we've learned, that power ultimately lies in the hands of Congress. Whether it's shaping monetary policy or deciding the fate of the Fed, Congress is the real MVP in this game. As we wrap up our exploration, remember this: in the world of finance, knowledge is power. So keep asking questions, keep seeking answers, and never stop mastering your money. Because here at Money Masters, we believe that understanding the intricacies of the financial system is the key to financial freedom. Stay savvy, stay sharp, and keep that cash flowing. Ka-ching!